We Turned Out Okay is a show about children and families. You get to see into the mind of a child development expert, and you'll learn tons about kids and why they do what they do. It's for grown-ups, so it's not always G-rated, but it's almost always PG. And we'll let you know when it's PG-13 or higher. Also, you can expect some rabbit holes and detours, but we return to the topic at hand. Besides, rabbits are awesome. What have you got against rabbits? Anyway, sit back, relax, and prepare to learn about how to stay sane while raising your little kids. Enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome to We Turned Out Okay. This is episode 352 of the show, and I'm Karen, welcoming you here and hoping that you are having, an okay time. I think maybe okay is as much as we can hope for these days, but hopefully life is all right for you. And just before we jump into this interview, this conversation, I wanted to welcome you to the show, tell you that after the conversation, I don't want you to stop listening because I'm going to be bringing you, I've been doing these digest episodes, and today I'm going to read to you from a newsletter that I recently sent, and it's called Changing Bras. Yes, I know. It's just that was what was in my heart to talk about. So, there we go. Today, when you're listening to our conversation with Erik Wagter, Sally Wagter, and me, here are some things for you to listen for. I think that you are going to love this conversation because they talk about how, as parents, we are the experts. Like, we know our kids best. And even so, Erik and Sally, their oldest child was diagnosed with autism when he was very young, and it's really been quite a journey for them. They were basically told he wouldn't live a normal life. He wouldn't be able to use language meaningfully or connect meaningfully with others. And they just refused to believe it. And he is now a young adult, their son, and he's thriving. And so when I say you are the expert, when they talk about that, that's really what they mean is like, just because a diagnosis has been given or, that you're entering a scary part of parenting for you, that doesn't mean that you're powerless. It doesn't mean that you can't do anything. And I think Erik and Sally are really shining examples of what you can do. So we talk about that. We talk about fostering meaningful connections, coming together closer as a family, which a lot of times I can say that in my family as well. The challenges have brought us closer together. And I called this episode The Truth About Parenting and Special Needs, because I think that it's not just parents of kids with special needs who would benefit from this conversation. It is every parent of every child, because we all have special needs, the parents and the kids, right? And we do get into that. We dive into that a little bit in today's conversation. I really hope it's helpful for you. As I said at the beginning, I hope that you are feeling well and good, and I hope that this conversation can contribute to that, even if you're not feeling as well or as good as you possibly could. So stay tuned for what's coming after. Just a quick note, today's episode is brought to you by the We Turned Out Okay playbook, where we're going to be spending January crafting a vision for the future. And I will tell you a little bit more about that after I read my newsletter, my most recent newsletter to you, but I did want to just give you a heads up. You can find out about the playbook by going to WeTurnedOutOKAY.com/playbook. And I hope you do. All right. I think that's all I needed to say before we jumped into this episode. So welcome. And we will catch you on the flip side of this, and then we'll catch you again on the flip side of our conversation. Thank you so much to Erik and Sally for coming on the show. Erik is a returning champion, actually, and Sally has written an amazing book, Miracle in Slow Motion, about their experience raising their child with autism. And as I say, I hope it's all helpful for you. All right, without further ado, on with the show. Hello and welcome to We Turned Out Okay. This is the show where we are always working to help you feel seen, heard, and cared for. And I am Karen Locke-Culp. I am your host, and I'm so pleased to bring you in on today's conversation. I am the creator of this podcast and also WeTurnedOutOK.com. And today I am thrilled because I am bringing you a conversation with someone that is a returning champion. His name is Erik Wagter, and he was episode 47. No, sorry, not episode 47, episode 75 of the show. And when Erik and I talked at that point, we talked a lot about he and his wife, Sally, and how they had been able to help in the raising of their son who had autism. And ever since we had that conversation, Erik and I have talked back and forth about bringing Sally onto the show as well, because Sally has done incredible work with their son and with, help for the autism community in general. And she's even written a book. The book is called Miracle in Slow Motion, which I just think is such a cool name. And there is a podcast and a website that are all built kind of around this book. And I'm so thrilled because not only do we have Erik here, we also have Sally here. And the podcast is called Releasing My Child's Potential. And that is the same name as the website. I will give you those links in the show notes, and I will certainly share them again at the end of the show. But for now, welcome, Erik and Sally. It's so good to have you here.
Hello, Karen. Hi. It's so good to be back. I think it's been about 3 years, isn't it? Something like that.
It's been quite a while. Yeah. It has been, I think it's, if this was episode 75, then we're talking, we're at episode 340 something right now. Just got published. Okay. We're recording in mid-October. And I feel like a lot has happened in both of our sort of lives and in our private lives and also in our professional lives since then. The pandemic is one thing that's happened, of course. And first thing I try to sort of ask everyone about as we kick off shows in the pandemic is how have you all been? How has life been for the Wachter family?
Well, in the beginning, when it was sort of March, I remember I was at work and, my managers at that time were suddenly saying that you got to go home. Everyone's going to work from home. And in the beginning, it was a bit like, hey, okay, I don't have to go to work. I can work from home. So it was quite nice. But then sort of the realization kicked in that it was quite serious. And you suddenly realize that we're living in a time which is quite out of the ordinary, or it's not specific, it's not normal. And in the beginning, you think maybe in 6-8 weeks time, this will all turn around. But then we started to realize that it was quite a long-term thing. And our son, Tim, the oldest, we have two children, 8-year-old Sammy and 18-year-old Tim. Mm-hmm. Tim, at some point, really struggled with the concept of, he had just turned 18. Oh, no, he wasn't even 18. He had his 18th birthday in the midst of it in July, but he had just he just was used to the whole freedom aspect of life. And he loved going on the bus to whatever town and go to the cinema, play piano in pubs or little cafes, and suddenly that was taken away. So he got really quite frustrated, and it affected him for a bit. But I think what we specifically did was it brought us as a family more together. We started to talk more. Regular daily conversations about what was actually happening. And I think clarity was really important for him and for all of us to understand what is it actually that is happening and why do we need to do the things that we need to do. Mm-hmm. The 8-year-old, easy peasy, he just sailed through it. It was like having one big long holiday for him. Yeah. For us, it wasn't like a long holiday, was it?
Well, in a way, I had something I really wanted from it, because I've always wanted to homeschool my youngest, and it was sort of forced on us that he was going to be there. And I managed to have like 6 months of really quality time with him, and that made such a difference.
Oh, that is so wonderful.
And, we only sort of really focused on sort of academic things, probably about an hour and a half a day, but I could teach him in a way that was so different to school, and I love the whole unschooling sort of way of thinking
concept. Yeah.
So his teacher had said to him quite a bit, said to me in front of him, oh, he's not doing well with his English, he's not doing the spellings, he's not doing enough of this, he's not doing that. And it was so negative, and he kept saying, I'm not good at English. And then when we had our time together, I'd say to him, well, what are you thinking about? What are you excited about right now? And he'd sort of tell me. And I said, well, write about that. I said, don't worry about spellings, full stops, capital letters, handwriting, anything. Just get the thoughts from your head onto the paper and let's have fun doing it. And we did that for ages. And his whole English just shot up because all the pressure was taken off and all the negativity was taken away.
Yes.
And we had lots of fun with it. And he's gone back to school, so much further on because of it. I really, really enjoyed doing that. So that was a good thing.
And just briefly coming back to Tim, that he at some point made a clear decision that he said, I'm going to fill my diary up with things so that time will go faster as long as I'm busy. And he got himself a little 2 times a week a gig in a hotel to play the piano. And, so he's filling up his diary. He's still going to the cinema as long as we have those around at this moment.
Yeah.
So I think we've settled into, being together as a family. That is the one thing that really helped us.
I'm completely fascinated by this because I talk to so many people and I hear from so many people, so many listeners with young kids, 8, 9, 10, and even younger, who are feeling either like, I don't know how to homeschool. I want to, I'm drawn to it, but I don't know how. And at the same time are feeling very put upon by what is expected of their children. Like right now in the United States, what's expected of a lot of elementary age children, which is sort of 8, 9, 10 and under, is that they will sit at a computer through their classes, and it's hours of sitting, and kids are really suffering. Parents are being instructed, you must sit right next to your child. Like it's nuts. And I like, Sally, especially how you sort of turn that around with young Sam and said, okay, this is our opportunity to actually homeschool or unschool, which is different than, I try to make this distinction too. It's different. Homeschooling is not learning at home. Right? Like if you are taking a curriculum from a school, if your school district is giving you a curriculum and your child is doing that curriculum, that is learning at home. But homeschooling is when we get to be in charge of our own. We make the choices about what our child is going to be doing. And I mean, increasingly the children make the choices, which is a neat thing, to be able to do. And I love that. That's where the magic happened, when you could take the pressure off of Sam.
Yeah, just to jump in there, because I remember just before it all started that he was at a place in school. He's quite a sensitive little chap. And the teacher did not have the specific kind of skills, I think, to understand, or had the time to really be, listen to his sensitivity and his feelings. And so he often came home highly frustrated, didn't want school, didn't like school. Mm-hmm. And so for us to have the opportunity to actually go with him and what he would want to learn, that was the exciting part. And it almost got us this close that we decided that, we're going to take him out of school as well, because it is such an opportunity. But he is also a very sociable child, and he was missing his friends a lot from school. So we kind of said, well, let's start this year and see what happens. But I feel very blessed that we live here in England, whereby you have the right to take your child out of school if you want to. Where I used to live in the Netherlands, you're not allowed to do that.
Is that one of the? I knew that was the case in Germany, for example, but I didn't realize it was the case in the Netherlands as well. Yeah. What's the reasoning behind that?
I haven't lived in the Netherlands for 21, 22 years, but the one thing that I can imagine is that I think they are afraid that when children are at home, that parents will not overseeing the whole educational process, and it will create so much work for the local authority to
catch that child back up or something,
and to check. And also in the Netherlands, particularly in like the main cities of like The Hague and Amsterdam and Rotterdam, you have a huge multicultural society, and they all have different ways of living at home. So therefore, sometimes I think the government just wanted to keep control over it all. I mean, it's not easy here just to take a child out of school. You still have to follow the rules, and you still have to have meetings with them. But
well, you don't. You only have to have a meeting once a year.
Well, yeah, okay,
and it's very lenient.
Yes, it's not. Yeah, Sally, keep talking about that, because it's similar where we live, but other places in the U.S. it's a little bit more. There's a lot more oversight, I guess I would say. So
I think if you take your child out over here, you have a meeting about once a year, and they go through some of your paperwork in a very vague kind of way, and basically say, yeah, you're doing okay, and then leave you alone for another year.
Yeah.
I suppose if you really literally do nothing and they could see your children are neglected, they might say something. But otherwise, I've never heard of any of my home educating friends being brought up on anything.
And I think that's such a distinction. It's such an important distinction, because here, and I want to get into a subject that I feel like listeners, I want you to put on headphones or, stop listening in the car with your kiddos or whatever, because this is something that happened a couple, I guess probably 4 or 5 years ago now in the U.S. The United States is a place where we have, I'm sure everyone listening knows this, whether you live here or not, a lot of shootings, right? We have these sort of mass shootings here. It's a real sickness in our country. And about 5-6 years ago in Colorado, where my parents live, a homeschooler committed a mass shooting. A kid who was homeschooled, quote, homeschooled. You cannot see my air quotes, but there they are. And the big news was that this was a homeschooler who had done this. Like, what does that say about homeschoolers, right? And so, I found it to be really frustrating, because people know so little about what homeschooling is and how to do it, and that like they didn't stop to think that every other one wasn't homeschooled. They had all gone to school. And
it's such a generalization, isn't it? Because it happens sometimes if someone, commits a crime and they have Asperger's or something like that. Everyone says, "Oh, it's because of that," and then they start thinking, "Oh, all people with Asperger's are potentially,
Exactly. And really, the truth is, it's the opposite.
Just generalizations, isn't it?
Yeah. And I feel like I've sort of adopted this mantra, because this is our 13th year of homeschooling. Although now, for the last couple of years, it's really been my kids have found a place for self-directed learning that they have loved, because it brings friends into the mix. I mean, you were talking about the social aspects of it, right? Like, this is a place where it's interest-led. Kids get to make choices about what classes they attend, how often they go to them, those kinds of things, and they do go to them because that's where their friends are, and like the conversation is amazing, and the learning is incredible, and it's fun. There's a lot of connection and engagement there, and I think I want to bring it back to like young children, but I also want to keep in mind this idea of connection, because Sally, what you talk about in Life in Slow Motion, what you talk about with your podcast, and it strikes me that it has a lot to do with connection. In fact, if I remember correctly, the wording on the website was, I'm not finding it. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to look, but I'm not finding. It's basically about how the one thing that matters in a child's development is the connection that child has with other people. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Major part of it. Yeah.
And I think it's such an important concept, because when we get bogged down, whether we're homeschooling or whether we're learning at home or whether we're doing hybrid or whether we're fully in school, these kinds of connections can still happen, right? I think a lot of parents abandon the idea of being a teacher. And part of the reason for that is because what they're seeing is the assignments, the curriculum, the tests, the things to prepare for, the homework. And at the base of it all, what matters most is not those things, but what matters most is the engagement and the connection, right?
Totally. And also, they say that, children who can manage socially are a lot more happy than children who can handle academic things. There have been loads of studies about emotional intelligent people being so much happier than people who are just cognitively intelligent. And all of that stuff can be developed, can't it, with your child, just between you and your child as a parent. Just with, as a parent, you don't need to have any qualifications or teach to any agenda to build that up in your child.
And in fact, an agenda, oftentimes kids balk at our agendas. I'm thinking of my when my oldest was learning how to ski. So skiing for me and in my family had always been a huge thing. At the time, my father was a ski instructor in the mountains of Colorado. I had been skiing and was so excited to ski with my kid. And he felt that pressure, and it really caused him to basically back away from skiing. And I was so thrilled years later when he discovered snowboarding, because he found a way to be on the mountain with me where I couldn't be telling him what to do. There was no pressure around it. It was just fun.
Yeah, when you were talking about connection and relationship with the child, it just brought back so many memories of the years that I worked with Tim, or that we worked with Tim, in our home education program, whereby it was such a blessing that, one of the, incredible things that we could do was just spend quality time with him. And the more time we spent with him, the more we entered his world, the more we entered the things that he was passionate about, the more our influence over his development increased. And I think, when your child is at school, and I'm not saying that schools don't do that, because, it's a tricky thing to look after 30 children, but I think that is the benefit of having your child at home and do something with your child at home, is that you, the parent, first of all, you are the expert of your child, of your family situation, of his development. And therefore you can, instead of following a curriculum, you can follow his agenda, you can follow his passions, and build on that. And I've just seen Tim grow. To give you one example, I know that you said you want to talk about younger children, but at some point, we used to love to connect his passions to his learning goals. And, social connection and developing friendships was a really important learning element in his life. And how old was Tim, Sally, when he started writing the film script for his film Hoodwinked 3?
Hoodwinked 3?
Yeah.
I think 14.
Okay, so at the age of 14, Tim started to write a film script, and so here, what his English teacher thought she would jump into that. And how many words were that?
34,000.
So there were 34,000 words. And at some point he said, I really wished we could make a film of this. And so Sally jumped on that, and we got...
Well, how can I just say, not completely jumped, because it's a massive decision to make a film that ended up being 2.5 hours long with 20 teenagers.
Oh my gosh.
It took 2 years. So say jumped. I did do quite a lot of thinking, but I didn't know quite how long it would take. And I was just all excited about a new project. And so I did,
But we could put so many learning goals in that project. We went on Facebook, he auditioned. Tim was all part of that process. He auditioned about 22 teenagers, and then for a period of 18 months, they rehearsed every week, they practiced, and then over a period of 6 or 8 weeks, they filmed on many different locations. And then
he wrote 10 of the songs as well for the film, and then all the film music, and we went to a professional studio. It was amazing opportunities.
But all the relationships, all the learning, we saw him grow so much, and I think that is the parent power that you have of home education, that you can decide what is right for your child.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. First of all, Sally, I want to get back to your point of like, I didn't jump in. I didn't, because there are so many ways to sort of, I think there's like pregnancy in my experience. If you didn't know what it was like, if you knew what it was like, maybe you wouldn't really, think to do it. But once you're in and it's working and it's taking the time that it takes, and I mean, we can look back on that and go, wow, that was a huge chunk of time. And it was so much fun and so valuable, but I'm not sure if I would have taken it on had I known what it was going to be. Did it feel like that?
It did, and at one point I wrote on a big piece of paper, I am not making a film again, and I stuck it on the fridge. Then I thought, oh no, I don't want Tim to see it, so I stuck it on top of the fridge, but I had made my point. But often when we did filming days, I would be awake from say 5 till 7 in the morning, going through all the script and making sure we knew exactly who was coming on where, what costume everyone had, what they needed to do, because for a lot of the time the person that was my sidekick was ill, so I literally had to do most of the directing myself. I've never directed a film before. I was kind of just going with the flow. But interestingly, all of this that we've just explained that Tim is capable of doing, when he started writing this at 14, when he was 8, we were told by his school that they couldn't teach him anything academic, and all we had to do was look ahead to assisted working for him in the future, that there was no hope. And I was told things like, oh, there's some good homes around here for when he's older, or you'd be a lovely mum to a normal child. I had some horrendous things said to me.
Oh, wow.
But I didn't believe it. But when I told them I don't believe it, they said, well, look, you're just not facing reality, almost like, oh, you poor thing, you're so heartbroken, you can't see the truth. And I'm thinking, no, I can see the truth. The truth is in my child's face. It's in his character, it's in all the hidden possibilities that he's got inside him, which you can't see because you just want him to totally conform to an agenda that he can't manage.
Yeah.
And you want him to do all the things that you want him to do, but you'll never find out what he can really do unless you turn that whole thing around and put him first and get rid of all agendas. And we at that point we sort of thought, oh, we just need to stop the world, we want to get off this stupid, just all of these expectations and all the way that school systems work. We thought, there's more to life than this, and the only thing that mattered to me was that I could connect with my child and that he would eventually be able to communicate with me and have friends and things like that. And I was quite happy to give up anything academic and put that first. But the irony is that by putting that first, the academic sort of neural pathways started to open up as well. And he's suddenly, he plays piano now. He plays he's like a cocktail pianist. He plays in hotels and things.
Yeah.
But he also, has got an incredible memory and played the entirety of the Cats musical, which is an hour and 40 minutes, singing it all and playing it all from memory.
Wow.
which is really, that's a fun part of the whole memory that he's got. But he's so clued up, to write a 34,000 word film script, and then he goes and writes another one for something else, and and all the connections between the people and the relationships and the comedy and the humor, and it's all there. So basically all of this must have been there in him,
yes,
ready to open up and develop. And the school just couldn't see it because how he was progressing or what he had inside him just didn't fit with their tight ship of a system.
And they had such a narrow focus. They had such a narrow.
Yeah.
So Erik and I talked a lot about that, about Tim's story in episode 75, and I'm going to link to that in our show notes. But I'm so excited to talk about that here because I think parents, whether their child has autism or a special ability or a special challenge or not, every parent, I feel like, has this moment of like, is this kid ever really, when your child is 4 years old and they're, I don't know, sticking their head in the toilet or like drawing blood against their siblings or something like that. We all have these thoughts of like, is this kid ever really going to be able to function in the world?
Yes.
And, I think for you to be able to, this is such a beautiful story. I'm going to encourage everybody to go back and listen to that first one because we really do get deep into it. I'm not sure that I even was aware until we were on the mic how profound this was. This was a boy who was told, he'll never live a normal life. And it sounds like he doesn't live a normal life. He lives kind of a better than normal life,
No, I think you're totally right. And I think if you look at the title of the book, Miracle in Slow Motion, which is available on Amazon. But if the title in itself, when he was little, I remember the nights that I went into his room and I just prayed to God. And I said, God, if you want to, you could snap your fingers and it can all be done. You want the best for your child and you want these miracles. But looking back now he's 18. And I think that's why the title Miracle in Slow Motion is, because we did receive everything that we wanted. It just came out, in stages.
Yeah.
And it also enabled us to grow into the people that we are. So it all serves a purpose, but sometimes you got to be patient because we cannot look into the future. We don't know what is ahead. And therefore you have to trust the process that, whatever happens is for a reason.
Can we talk about that a little bit? I think so often parents don't have a sense that it could possibly turn out all right because of what the teacher is telling them, because of what their child did today, because of the endless grind that we can feel as parents. Were you were you able to stay positive? And if you ever questioned, what did that look like, and how did you kind of get yourselves out of it? If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Well, I had lots of worries and doubts about the future. You know, it was like Pandora's box for me. I just had to shut it all away and not think about it because I was really scared. And I thought, gosh, you know, he's having such high meltdowns, he can hardly communicate. You know, he can't manage to connect with people. What's going to happen if he gets older and this just gets worse? It's absolutely heartbreaking because he's such a gorgeous child. And if he can't do that, you know, what's going to happen to him? And I would panic and to such a level. But then, of course, all your attention has to go on the here and now. So I sort of put my panic in a little box and sort of like, you know, put it in the corner of my mind. But I tell you, honestly, it was when I went to the Sunrise program when he was 5. And they were the one, that's when my fear of the future started changing. I started getting hope for all the things that I could do. I didn't have to be a bystander. I could do things to change this situation. And I lost some of my grief and fear, and it turned into hope and actually excitement. And I became absolutely determined to do everything I could in my power to help him to become his total self, you know, not to be not to have to mask who he is, you know, just to be really totally himself, but really develop socially, emotionally, emotional connection, start to understand things. You know, when he was 5, I wrote down that my dream for him was to be able to have short conversations with other people and for him to start to understand stories well. And also, I dreamed that by the time he was 18, I would be able to sit around the table and have a 2-way conversation with him. Well, we've been having 2-way conversations since he was, 9, 10.
Wow.
And it's just got better and better. I mean, right now we put the world to rights. We have in jokes. We, you know, his friends come around and we all chat together. I mean, at one point, one of his friends from college phoned him up from town crying because she'd broken up with her boyfriend, and he jumped on the next bus and went into town and hung around with her all afternoon, and they ate ice creams at the beach, and he did it to comfort her. And that is one of the most incredible feelings for me as a parent. Is the kind of thing you want. You want your child to have friends. You want people to like your child, you know. You want them to be part of a group, have connection, to feel good in themselves, not to only feel sad and lonely and left out and like there's something wrong or something awful like that. You know, and gradually over the years, I have been the one, and Erik, who've been able to input all of those good feelings. And that's what the Sunrise gave me. They gave me back my place as his parent with all the full empowerment that I have to help him all the time. And I've helped him with what's the word? Intention. That's the word. I've had full intention 24/7 to help him and work with him. So most of the things I've done, however subtle, have had that sort of goal and intention. And I've had my feelers out for everything I can learn. But the hope that I received by seeing Ron Kaufman talk, actually, and was one of the most life turning around experiences for me. And so from then I knew how to look after him and I knew what to do, and I had to sort of push the world systems out of the way to do it, because I knew what would work for him. And I didn't mind. I'm someone who always seems to care what other people think, but in this I didn't care what people thought, because I knew what I was doing with him was right. And I knew that so many of the opinions and things from other people weren't right. You know, they just expected him to do something. They had a very fixed mindset. You know, he's not learning this because of his autism. Well, I think, well, no, maybe he can learn it, but it's because it's not being taught in the way that works. Yeah. You know, so it's constantly turning those things around. But I did, after that, throughout the time, have a few wobbly moments where I thought, gosh, you know, can he really, you know, am I putting my hope in something? Will he not be able to develop? Can he really not in certain areas? I've had 1 or 2 major wobbly moments, but I did also have a very strong belief, and also had visions. I would visualize him running into me from a play date, telling me all about it, all flushed in his face and excited and telling me everything, you know. And I kind of gave sort of thought like that, and sort of because I wanted it so much. And I think what's that called when you do that? It's like
you mean like sort of an affirmation or a visualization?
Yeah, it's a sort of a visualization of what you really, really want in your heart. You know?
And you know what?
So obviously that didn't make it happen. It was because we did all the things that we did. But I knew what I was working for. I knew what I wanted.
If I can briefly jump in there.
Oh, absolutely, please.
I'll keep it
Sorry,
short.
I sometimes talk
No,
too much.
this is great. The whole point of this is we can talk for as long as we want.
Yeah. I mean, Sal and I come from sort of different backgrounds. I remember when I started my first career as an 18-year-old young man as a nurse in learning disability in the Netherlands. So I work with people with Down syndrome, autism, you name it, and I work with them. So I came from that background and that passion. And I remember a day saying, looking up in the sky and saying, God, if there's ever a child that needs to be born with some challenging or difficulties, then please let it be born to me, because I really felt that's my thing.
Wow.
And well, Sal and I did not know each other then. You always said later, I didn't sign up for that.
But clearly Eric had.
Yeah.
No, but not because I don't want a child with difficulties, but because he was suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand.
Amounts of suffering. You don't want to just watch that.
I mean, I think we all have those moments though of like, I really didn't sign up for this, but then I think what helped me overcome those moments is it's not about me right now. It's about my kid and they're suffering and I need to help them. And
because at one point I had somebody say to me, you're very social. Don't try and make Tim like you. And I thought, I'm not trying to make Tim like me. He's saying to me, please, can you help me? And, I can't make friends. I can't do this. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to help you. He was actually in the end asking me to help him. So
yeah.
And I think as a young parent, I naturally, my way of thinking in life was that there is always an answer. So whatever was thrown at me, I didn't have so much difficulties, I think, with Tim's situation. I think as a husband, and I think if there are any guys listening to this podcast, they might relate to that. I struggled to see the times when Sally was unhappy, because that was the one thing that I could not do anything about that. I could not instantly turn something around to make her just happy like that.
Yeah.
And I think it just motivated me more and more to throw myself into, living our life with Tim the way we did. And there's this one beautiful story, and it really always inspired me, because sometimes people look at our lives and they said, what you guys do, we would not be able to do
I couldn't do it. Yeah.
That's what they say. And there's this story that once someone told me, and they said, just imagine that you're a sculptor and you have this special room in your house. And within that room is a sculpture that you're working on. And every time when you pass that room, you're looking through the little window and you can't wait to get in there to make that sculpture even more beautiful. And that is how we saw working with Tim. We had Tim's playroom and we spent hours and hours and hours in that room, like the sculpture, working with him to make him more wholesome, to make him, more complete. And I think that sort of visualization of life that got me going.
Would you say to help, like Sally, this came up a few moments ago when you were talking about people saying like, oh, don't make him be social like you. And then Tim, when you were speaking about, sort of Eric, I mean, visualizing Tim as a sculptor, it's a little bit of helping them become who they are, be able to stand up in their own selves and make those connections from within themselves, right?
Totally. And I think like with autism, because the sensory overload was so high, because his processing was so confused, because his auditory delay was so pronounced, and all of those things, because just existing was hard work for him, he had quite a weak sense of self. And I think then it's very easy to take that weak sense of self and all those difficulties into a system where you're just pushed around and moved from pillar to post, and everyone can say whatever they like. And of course, you're going to feel slightly at odds and what's going on, and other people take over. But what I found also at schools was, if I'd come and meet him at the end of the day, the person who'd been with him would just start telling me everything he'd done. And I think, well, hang on, I want him to tell me, even if it takes 15 minutes, let him tell me even with one sentence, because it's got to come from him, not from other people.
Yeah.
And, and at one point I learned that the more I respond to all his attempts to communicate, the more motivated he will be to communicate. It's like, say, for instance, he says jump, I would say a metaphorical how high, because I want him to know how much agency he has with his voice. And I found that I found that I put that as such priority that I didn't care if I was late for things. If he stopped and spoke, I would get on my knees, I would get to his level, I would pay full attention to everything he was saying, and I would make sure I responded. And that was intentional. And that was more important to me, that I would eventually be able to speak to him and him to speak back to me, or communicate in any way, was more important to me than any of the everyday things that were going on. So it made it quite easy for me to just suddenly, okay, stop the world. Right, I'm yours. I'm listening.
Oh, this is so beautiful. So two things come up for me that I feel like are applicable to every single child, wherever they live, whatever their, growth and development rate is, whatever issues they are born with, and whatever gifts they arrive with as well, right? One is they need us to be with them in the moment. They need us to not telescope out ahead and worry, but they need us to be right here present with them now. Yes. Right? Mm-hmm. And then the other one is they need us to think positive on their behalf.
Yes.
They need us to be able to say, like, it's going to be great. Like, we're on an adventure. Let's go on this adventure together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's so true. And what I find with a lot of parents that I've worked with and I'm friends with and things is that what tends to happen is the school sets the agenda, the child is meant to fit in, and then the school speaks to the parent, and then the parents are on the side of the school also trying to make the child fit in.
Yep.
And then the child will sort of feel they're a bit lost because their parent isn't their real advocate. The parent is just trying to make them do what the rest of the world want them to do.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's really good as a parent to step out of all of that. Partly because I'm a teacher, I found it easier, because I know for a fact that so many teachers don't really know what they're doing. I had 4 years of teacher training, and I've had children with autism in my classes of 30. I didn't know what I was doing because I hadn't had proper training. And when you have training, it's only a few hours in an afternoon. You nobody. And also, what I've also learned is that a child who struggles with processing and things like that really does need a one-to-one, but not just a one-to-one following an agenda, but a one-to-one where it really works for them.
Yeah.
And also with an adult who isn't stressed.
Yeah.
An adult who is present with them.
Yeah.
And has got all the time. And if they speak and it takes a long time, well, the adult's got the time.
Yeah.
And that will help the child. If they're only in a situation where the teacher has 30 children and 13 different subjects they have to teach, and is obviously all the time stressed and doesn't have any one-to-one time, it's not rocket science that they're not going to be able to learn that way.
And I think I love this. Just as we're wrapping up, we have a couple more minutes. I love this idea that because of the way everyone must be living now in the pandemic, we have a lot more at home time, present time. I mean, it is, I think lots of kids are mourning the loss of sports, and everything can change on a dime. Even if you were hybrid, maybe, and you loved that, maybe you can't be hybrid next week because somebody tested positive. This happened to a nephew of mine a couple of weeks ago, and he was in isolation for 14 days because he'd been, and there's a lot in this time that is just terrifying and worrisome, but, but this also just presents a tremendous opportunity to really be present with our kids. And I want, if you're listening and you're like, oh, here's another thing for me to do, right? And you're rolling your eyes. I would ask you to not approach it with any agenda, but instead to just say like, all right, what does my kid want to do? I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes with my child sort of doing what they want to do. And that's where they feel like, so when I was a preschool teacher long ago in a former life, my favorite places in the classroom were the sand table, the water table, the Play-Doh table, the areas where kids are with you and playing, but that's sometimes those are the times where they would tell you the things that were in their hearts, the things that they didn't feel like they could talk about in any other time of their day. And it's because we let them have the time with us. And I just think that's so, so important. I really wanted to highlight that from our conversation. And just as we're wrapping up, I would love to give you both, Erik and Sally, just a moment or two to kind of share, for someone who is starting out on this journey where they don't really know yet who their child will become. What might you say to them?
You want to take that one?
There you go first.
I'd love for you, but I'd love to hear from you both. So,
well, okay. Let's say that they're at the beginning of their journey. first of all, I think it matters hugely. Are they a couple? Are they or a single parent? But because I take my hat off for single parents, because we're doing this together, and wow, even together it is hard work. It's worth it, but it is hard work. And so, any single parent out there, you have my respect. So, if they are at the very beginning. And let's say they're diagnosed with autism. I don't know if that's what you mean, Karen, but
I truly mean any parent, because we all, before our child can speak, we have fears about will they speak, right? My oldest didn't walk until he was 16 months old, and we thought it's the end of the world. You know what I mean? And he runs now. He runs for miles. Like it's cool. But I mean, I would love to take it outside of just autism and really into every parent has these concerns, right?
Yes, and it makes me think about a lot of families. You know, I think over the last 29 years, I must have worked with over 1,000 families, from all sorts of directions. And I think that if parents are at the beginning of their journey as being a parent and their child, the interesting thing is, you start your journey and you're not conscious of your journey. You're just a parent, and 1 year leads into the other. And if you do not purposefully plan or think about who do I want my child to become, how would I like my child to be, and trying to imagine him at a certain age, if you cannot it's really important to picture that, because the interesting thing is I've met so many parents who at some point came to me and said, Erik, my child is showing certain things that I'm absolutely shocked by. Where did that come from? And when a child is born clean, empty, that there is no influence in the child, unless there is some drug addiction that goes for that. But a typical child, there is no influence. The child is blank, and that is the beautiful thing. And so what we as parents, what I call the sow into our child, it's actually the whole concept of sowing something. We have to see that there is a harvest from what we sow. So the more conscious and the more like an increased awareness of what are we sowing, because the seeds that we are going to sow into our child's life, there is going to be a harvest. And if you want to have an input into what this harvest is going to be, that is the exciting thing, that as a beginning parent at the very beginning, is that what seeds are you willing or would you like to go and sow into your child, so that your child grows into someone that respects someone that has great communication skills, that is a social person, that is caring and has empathy. And I think, you become a parent and life just starts happening. And so any beginning parent, my thing would be is take a moment to really ask yourself, what is the harvest that I would like to see from the seeds that I'm sowing into my child's life in the coming years?
I love that. Oh, I love that so much.
So what are your thoughts? So?
I think my thoughts would be, you actually said it yourself, just a parent. You're not just a parent, you're the most important person in your child's life.
Yeah.
And you've got way more influence than you think. Your child, yes, the world has systems where everyone goes to school and things, but that was never designed for child development. That was designed more for,
efficiency.
Efficiency, exactly. And I think I would really advise people to take their child's side, not just listen to what other people say and what the school want, but where your child really is. And I would say from the very beginning, even if you don't know what the outcome is going to be, which you don't, if you put relationship first and build up trust and connection with your child, you will just reap so many incredible rewards all the way through. And you never know what's going to happen. And we proved that so much more was possible in our child than everyone was telling us.
Yeah.
We didn't believe what they were telling us. And because we learnt, to parent him in such a different way, the outcome is genuinely miraculous,
Yeah.
And so you just don't know what's possible. So I think to always live believing things can get better and with all the hope, it's a really good frame of mind.
Yes. And I have goosebumps. I think these are such important words. it's making me think of, I don't know the researchers, but I learned of a study I learned over the summer of a study that had been done during after World War II, after the Blitz in London. And what the research showed was that kids who were sent away, because a lot of kids got sent away from London during the Blitz so that they wouldn't be in harm's way, right? But also a lot of kids didn't go away. A lot of kids stayed there. And when research was done on those two groups of children, who went away and who stayed, the children who were sent away were they had grown up so much more anxious and unhappy than the ones who had stayed. And the researchers basically say their conclusion is the parents, the presence of these trusted people mattered more than bombs dropping on them. And yes. I think that's such, like, I keep calling this crisis parenting is a kind of a term. The way that we're all living in the pandemic, it's so anathema to the way that we've ever lived before. And it can be so scary, but just that single, like, I have felt better personally from thinking that, like, bombs could be falling on our house, and if our kids were here, they would still be better off than if we had sent them away to avoid the bombs. Like, that's really, I think what you're saying is so true and so important. And if you listening are at the beginning, relatively at the beginning of your parenting journey, you would do so well to listen to Erik and Sally Wagter, who have such great ideas about parenting and are living those values every day. Erik and Sally, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been such a pleasure to have you. I can't believe how quickly this time has gone.
It's been great.
It's been fantastic. Great catching up with you again, Karen.
Yes, exactly. I would say the same. So you can find Sally's book, Miracle in Slow Motion, not Life in Slow Motion. Miracle in Slow Motion in Amazon. I'm going to have the links to the notes right here, the podcast and the website as well. I'll have all the links in here. And I finally always like to wrap up these recordings with a special thank you to our producer, the man who has been such a partner with me in fostering the connection with our children and within our family. The 23-time winner of the Husband of the Year Award, Benjamin Culp. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Hello, it's me again. It's Karen, coming to you after the conversation with the second part of these digest episodes, which is me reading from a newsletter that I recently sent to my email news group. That's a free newsletter that you can join if you would like to, just by going to weturnedoutokay.com/weekly. That is in the it's in the show notes. If you would like, you can just look right down into your podcatcher to sign up and get these. Usually I send 1 or 2 a week, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. Actually, I would say it's not, even when I was in the hospital in October, it wasn't less. I always tried to send at least 1 newsletter per week. And sometimes, as I say, it's more. It just depends on what I feel like what's in my heart to say. So today's is, as I said before, the conversation that I just had with Erik and Sally Wachter, which I hope you really loved. I loved doing it. And it was so good to have Erik back on the show and also to bring Sally on the show. This one is called Changing Bras, and I will read it to you now. Okay, here we go. Hi, friends. Before we get started, I just want to apologize to any of you who might not care to know very much about the undergarments of your favorite child development expert. But this was the letter that was in my heart to write today. There's a very good reason, one I hope you'll find relevant to your life, but I completely understand if you want to not read today's letter. Don't feel that you must. I'll be back next week with another newsletter, and perhaps it will not contain such intimate subject matter. If you'd like my next newsletter to be delivered right into your inbox, go to weturnedoutokay.com/weekly. Prior to becoming a mother, I had always believed that wearing a bra meant strapping yourself into serious foundational support. Going out into the world? Going to be seen by anyone but yourself or your closest family? Time to harness up. Discovering that there were bras meant for comfort was a revelation. As I say, this happened only after I had had children. It started with nursing bras, many of which were delightfully pajama-like. So much about bringing a baby into the world is painful and difficult. I rejoiced in the idea of something comfortable and supportive, even if it was just a bra. After I stopped nursing, I found I still wanted that comfort. I wanted that idea of your day is done, it's time for a break. Slipping into something more comfortable meant literally that. And so for at least the last 15 years or so, I have enjoyed changing from what I think of as daytime bras to what I think of as sleeping bras. Exchanging the daytime bra for the sleeping bra has come to mean a complete shift emotionally, from work mode to rest mode. This has only become more true after I was hospitalized recently with diverticulitis. I have been thinking very deeply on how I take care of myself, and I've known that I've been hitting the daytime bra mentality, that of hard work and doing for others, way too hard. But I didn't think of it that way at first. When I have felt tired after getting out of the hospital, the first thing I've noticed is that my daytime bra gets uncomfortable. It cinches and pinches, but only when my body is telling me it's time to stop working and rest now. When I wake up in the morning, I'm very happy to put on that daytime bra. To me, this represents the idea that I get a lot more done in the mornings, both creatively and in my private life. I love the feeling of putting on a fresh, clean daytime bra in the mornings. But long about late afternoon or early evening, as I say, that same daytime bra starts to get constricting, uncomfortable. It is then that I've started to recognize the need to be done with thinking about work. And on my best days, it is then that I change from the daytime bra to the sleeping bra. The sleeping bra represents a completely different mindset, one that is not self-sacrificing, but instead self-affirming. It means a cup of tea and a good book. It means laughter and conversation with my family. It means a good day was had, and now it's time to rest. That's what a change of bra does for me. How do you shift modes? Have you recognized this as something that is important in your life? Not necessarily with a bra. Perhaps for you, it's not even a clothes thing, but instead closing the curtains or starting a fire in your fireplace or sitting down for your evening meal. I'd love to hear about it, and I'm wishing you the best of both modes, creative/work and comfy/cozy. Cheers, Karen. And you can tell me how you shift modes by going to Karen@WeTurnedOutOK.com and emailing me. That's okay.com. As I was reading back through this, I was remembering just the feelings that I had while I wrote it, which is I am probably in a slightly different place than you. If you're listening, likely you have small or smaller kids, and you don't have the same capacity for rest quite yet as I do, I think, because what happens is even in your rest time, you're still caring for children. You're giving baths. You're doing a lot more of sort of the cleanup and care that a family needs, likely anyway, than I do. This is for two reasons. One, because I have a tendon disorder, which means that since my kids were about 11 and 7, I have needed a lot more help with that than the kind of the average person. And I guess I thought about that because while it's true that you might not be shifting modes quite like me, there is still, I want to implore you to have a recognition of needing rest and a recognition of like, what is my body trying to tell me? If your underclothing is telling you by cinching and pinching that it's time to change into something more comfortable, there is absolutely no reason, and I give you 100% permission, if you hadn't done it already, to eat dinner in your pajamas. No one needs to know or worry about that. Like how we function in our homes is what's best for us. It brings to mind an expression I've been thinking on a lot recently, which is success is the freedom to be yourself. That was spoken by Dr. Manuel Astruc on Shannon Connery's podcast, which is called Fix Yourself. And I just love the idea. Success is the freedom to be yourself. And if that means, for me, that means I wear a sleeping bra to dinner a lot of the time. Sometimes I do work. If I've got, if I've got something creative that has to be done, just like sometimes even if you don't want, even if you're not even if you wished that you could rest and be in complete rest mode, but you still had a child to bathe or, some kind of evening duties. Sometimes I have evening duties too. And I love them. And the neat thing is I can do them so for example, if I have a meeting with my group coaching clients, oftentimes those are at night because that's when everybody has the time. And I unashamedly do them in my pajamas because to me, that makes it more, what's the word? I feel like I'm being truly myself. I a long time ago, if you ever see me in a YouTube video, you do not see me wearing any makeup because a long time ago, I decided that if I was going to have to do makeup, which I don't wear unless I'm going to be on stage, basically, that I needed to not, I was either going to not do the YouTube video or I was going to not put on makeup. And I decided that it felt like more being me, true to you and true to myself if I just show up as I am in real life. So yeah, that's what I guess that's really the reasoning behind this newsletter. And even if you still have worky things that you need to do in the evening, doing them I would ask you to find some way to make it feel truly like rest time, or at least more like rest time, if you can possibly do that, because it's a mindset shift as much as it is anything else. And it's kind of a necessary mindset shift if we want to be happy in life. So that's really what a change of bra does for me. That might not be a change of bra for you. It might be something completely different. As I say, Karen at WeTurnedOutOkAY.com, write to me because I would absolutely love to hear about how you shift modes and what that really means for you and what this really looks like for you. How do you get the rest time that you need? Do you even recognize needing the rest time? I think that's such a key part of this. And so that's my newsletter that I wanted to share with you today. I wanted to share finally that this particular episode of this show is brought to you by the We Turned Out Okay playbook. I have been creating the playbook. It is a printed playbook. It's sort of part workbook, although I hate that. I hate that expression. Part calendar, part just self-affirming, wonderful thing that you get in the mail. If you have a US mailbox, you get that in your mail every month. And I think I've shared this before on the show. I've been creating them since August. Issue 1 was August 2020. I really made it in response to the struggles that we were all having with the pandemic. And the struggles are ongoing, but what I didn't do was utilize it myself in my private life until after I had been in the hospital. When I came out of the hospital in October, I was like, dude, you gotta, you need to make some changes. And one of them is taking care of you. And the playbook was right there to hand for me. So I stopped being the creator in those moments and started being a consumer of the playbook. And it really materially helped me feel better, helped me keep going. It's relevant to my life. It's relevant to your life and what's going on in your life as a parent. It's an ideal space for you to think and write about your kids, your ideas, your life, your home. It's helpful in creating family harmony and happiness within you. And in January, what we're going to spend our time doing with the playbook is we are going to craft a vision for the future. I think that January is such a great time to really take stock. I'm not a huge fan of resolutions. I am a huge fan of a one word to guide us, and I will be talking about that a little bit more in episode 353, which is coming up in 2 weeks. It'll be the 28th, I believe, or the 29th, just before the new year, whatever that Tuesday is. So I will be sharing about my one word there. But I think I always try to take a greater stock of things, without resolutions, which, as I say, I don't do well with resolutions. If I declare I'm going to lose 20 pounds this year, I have to have a different attitude about it than just declaring I'm going to do it. Because if I just declare it, I won't do it. So the playbook in January is going to be all about creating that vision for ourselves. Like, what do we actually want our year to look like? I am really excited because just this morning I wrote in each one, I take you, the reader, into I have a place in my mind called the Dream Headquarters, which I've been cultivating since I was a yoga instructor in some form or other, which is now we're talking like at least 20 years. I would say at least 20 years. And every night I visit the Dream HQ in my mind. And every month I write an essay, a mindfulness essay for playbook readers. And this month I'm really, really excited. As I say, I just wrote it this morning, and I just think it's going to be so helpful for feeling hopeful about the future, for feeling like this truly is a new beginning, and what we can do with that. And so I wanted to invite you to subscribe to the We Turned Out Okay playbook. It is right now, if you go to WeTurnedOutOkAY.com/playbook, you can get 3 months of the playbook for the price of 2. That is a $73 value. I have both a print version for American US subscribers, so that goes right to your mailbox. And I also have a digital version for international folks. At this time, we cannot. I unfortunately can't do a printed version for international folks. I write these in real time, so it just takes a long time to get there, and unfortunately that can't happen. But if you are international, what I would suggest, what I have people do is print it out, take it away from your computer, use it in your favorite chair, get your favorite hot beverage, curl up, and enjoy the playbook. If you would like January's, you need to subscribe by midnight this coming Sunday, if you're listening in real time, December 20th. That will give you playbooks issues 6, 7, and 8, which is January, February, and March of 2021. And as I say, you will get 3 months, but only pay for 2 months. And every time that you re-up, you still get to keep that, even though the rate is going up for future subscribers. So, so that's what I have to say about the playbook. I decided to sponsor this episode with it because there's no better time than coming into January to make the choice to kind of do something, to take a step in your life, to make things better. And one of the playbook readers said to me, "Wow, Karen, this is so good. The actions are so small, so simple, and yet so powerful." Another said that it was worth every penny, which to me really means a lot, because it's an investment. And when you invest in the playbook, I like to say you're investing in yourself. That's what I've been doing these last couple of months, as I've been doing the playbook and feeling much better for it. So if you would like to get January's playbook delivered right into your US mailbox, or right into your international inbox, and then you'll print it and bring it to your favorite chair, you must subscribe, again, as I said it before, by midnight this coming Sunday, December 20th, for playbook issue 6. You'll get this deal, this offer, which is 3 months for the price of 2. That is a $73 value. You'll keep that rate for as long as you subscribe to the playbook, even as the rate goes up for future subscribers. And to get all that, to get this playbook, to feel better in 2021, to plan your vision for the year, go to WeTurnedOutOkAY.com/playbook. And thank you so much for listening to this show. It's a labor of love. It is something that I can't imagine not doing. It's brought me so many wonderful people and friends and connections in my life. And I'm very grateful to you for listening. And I hope that if you're new, that it's the first of many that you listen to. And if you are a returning subscriber, that you're returning because it's worthwhile for you. I really, really appreciate you being here. And finally, I have a special thanks to our producer, the man who does so much more than just produce this show. He is my life partner. He is my wonderful husband, the father of my children. He is also the 23-time winner of the Husband of the Year Award. Benjamin Cole, thank you so much, Ben, for all that you do for us. And again, thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.